This is a Shure SM7B. Actually, it's a picture of a Shure SM7B because I don't own one, and you shouldn't either. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Joe Finley, and today we're discussing spending too much money on your content creation. So many people wanting to be content creators. I'm a fairly new one myself, and so many people just spending money that they don't have or that they're not making on the biggest and the best gadgets that are out there. And it just is so wasteful. I was in a discussion thread in a Facebook group and people were asking, ooh, I'm just started podcasting. What microphone should I get? And people kept answering the Shure SM7B. That is a $400 microphone US. Can you imagine telling somebody who's just getting started to go to the absolute top of the ladder and get the microphone to do their podcast? And I want to make it really clear, this is not an Shure SM7B video. That microphone is fantastic. You're going to have a hard time finding a better dynamic microphone. But the bottom line is that if you're not making money on the content you're creating, you should not be shelling out that much. We need to consider what we need to make a quality product to get to the point where you can monetize and do those sort of things, and then make those upgrades as you move along. Now, eagle-eyed and cynical viewers would say, hey, Joe, you're using a mirrorless camera and you're a fairly new channel. You're right. However, I'm not just using it for a single stream or for just doing this YouTube channel. I do a stream, this YouTube channel, 2 different podcasts that are done on video, I vlog, and I actually use the camera for photography. So I am getting a lot of use out of that. So I found a device that is worth the money for me. I didn't get one of the super high-end mirrorless. I got the Sony a7 III, which is high-end, but it's not a7S III, or it's not the FX1, or a bunch of other cameras that could just be a million times more expensive. I got one that was in my price range, that did what I needed it to do. I probably could have even gone a couple steps lower, but I didn't want to go with a crop frame sensor. I wanted full frame for the kind of work that I was doing. But now think about the content that you're doing. What is it that you actually need? Are you just doing a stream? Then I would recommend maybe not starting out with a $2,000 camera. I would say, hey, how about the Elgato Face Cam? How about the AverMedia Live Streamer Cam PW513? Again, shorten that name. I'm gonna say it till you do it or I'm dead. But if you're just deciding to become a streamer and the only use that you're gonna have for a camera is to plant it in one spot and have it pointing at you, then why on earth would you start out so expensive? Start with the decent webcam, work your way up, make your money, save some money, and then invest in that better camera a little ways down the road. If you're going to go out and do some vlogging, start a YouTube channel, things like that, and you want to get into a higher end camera, okay, cool. Now weigh your options. Do you care if it's going to be shot in 4K? You could look at something like the Sony a6100. It's crop frame, it's got the flip out screen, it's a great camera at a heck of a lot better price than even this one. But let's go back to audio for a second. So we need to consider that a microphone is not the only thing you need when you're doing content like this. So for example, if I'm doing a stream, we can get away with a USB microphone. We've done tons of videos on USB microphones that are going to be fantastic for you if you're going to be planted at your desk and just doing a stream or something like that. They're also, generally speaking, really affordable. So if you are doing a podcast or something like that, you can get 2. You can get a couple of matching ones and then complete that whole nice podcast aesthetic if you're doing a video podcast. If not, you mix and match, do whatever you want. And also with the USB mics, depending on which one you can get software with it that turn it into a mixer. We've talked about them before. We've talked about the Wavelength software for Elgato. We've talked about the Rode Connect. We've talked about the Razer Synapse for the Siren V2 Pro. All great mixing software that saves you even more money because the hardware versions of those cost a lot. So let's actually go into what we need to get a microphone heard and recorded and all those sorts of things. There's a couple of different routes we can go. We can go the computer route or the non-computer route. So let's talk about the non-computer route first. You're going to need your microphone or microphones depending on how many people are actually going to be working on this project. If you're doing a podcast with multiple people or whatever, you're going to need the appropriate cables, which in most cases don't come with the microphone. They're not super expensive, but they can get expensive depending on who you're going with. You're going to need a mixer to actually mix all the audio and then send it out to be able to record it. And then you need some means of recording. Now, there are pieces of hardware that are a one-stop shop for a lot of these things. The Rodecaster Pro, for example, it's a mixer that is a recorder as well. Zoom makes some great XLR recorders that can take multiple microphone inputs. Both great options. The price points vary. Again, you need to look into your budget and what works best for you. The Rodecaster Pro, a very expensive device. A little recorder, less so. But then, if we're talking about the Shure SM7B, you have to consider something else. You might need a cloud lifter. Without a cloud lifter for the SM7B in many mixers, you'll never be able to get the gain high enough to make it usable. You need to pass it through a preamp before it even goes into a mixer. Now, good news. A lot of mixers have a built-in preamp that'll cover this for you. So you have to research that before you make your purchase. Now we go the computer route. So some of the devices we talked about are no longer in the picture, like your Zoom recorders and stuff like that. But something like the Rodecaster Pro can plug directly into your computer, and then you can put it through OBS or anything like that. And then you get into things like the Go XLR and the Go XLR Mini, which again, the Go XLR is a very expensive product, but it does have the built-in preamp as well. And there are a lot of other mixers that you can get that actually have a USB output that go directly in. They're a lot less expensive, but don't have that preamp. Now, the good news is most mics don't actually require a preamp. I used this Behringer one when I started my podcast. And then once you've gotten into the computer, you can use any program that you want to take the audio. If you're just recording audio, you can use something like Audacity. There's things like GarageBand and a million other apps out there that'll allow you to record audio. Some are free, some are not. You choose what's best for you. I started out with Audacity and I still use it to this day for some projects. It's easy, it's free, and it has everything I need. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're like, well, that's all well and good, but still, that SM7B, it's just such an awesome sound. It's so good. It's so bassy. And I don't disagree. But with just a little bit of work, you can take a much cheaper microphone and still make it sound great. This microphone here is the Rode Pod mic. It's $100 compared to $400 for the SM7B. And just with the use of VSTs, I make this thing sound fantastic. It does wonderful for my voice. So you've been listening to how I sound with the VSTs on. Here's what it sounds like with them off. If you're willing to spend the time rather than the money, you can really do wonders with a much cheaper microphone. So if the quality of the SM7B is here, and I can get the Rode Pod mic here, is this $300 worth of difference? So let's talk about what I'm using right this minute. So we've already said I have the Rode Pod mic, and I have this plugged directly into my Wave XLR. So now I'm getting the best of both worlds. We've talked about this before, but I'm using my XLR mic, which is going into a device that gives me access to that wavelength software. So I have a mixer on my computer and everything's a whole lot easier. And on top of that, the mic and the Wave XLR together only cost $260. That's still a lot less than the cost of one SM7B, and you'd still need to get a mixer and potentially a cloud lifter and all these things just to get the audio to the computer in the first place. So I'll clarify this one last time. I'm not telling you to never buy the SM7B, but what I am saying is that if you're starting out, and if you're watching this channel, most of you probably are, you don't want to be wasting money on big ticket items. If you're somebody who's got deeper pockets, you're doing this as a hobby and you want to have the fanciest toys, then go for it. I'm not going to stop you. I'm just saying, when you're seeking the advice of other people and they're just telling you, go get the fanciest thing right off the hop, they don't have your best interest at heart. And if I'm really being frank, when I go into threads like that and I see people say, hey, use the SM7B, I think that 99% of them don't even actually know the real quality. They just happen to know that some big podcasters use it and they know that it's the fancy one, so they want to sound smart. But just know that there are good, affordable options out there. Shure makes the SM57 and 58. Those are fantastic, just handheld dynamic microphones. We've talked about the Rode Pod mic, but there's also the Rode Procaster and the Rode Podcaster. You can even go with the Shure MV7, or better yet, if you're just doing the XLR option, the MV7X, because there is no USB option on that, and it really brings down the price. The XLR only version, the MV7X, is $70 cheaper than the MV7. So if you're not going to use the USB, then just go that route. And then you're not a whole lot more expensive than the Rode Pod mic. But I hope that you take this advice to heart, and that advice is to not always listen to everybody's advice. You do what is best for you. You know your budget. I urge you to have the discipline to not go for the shiniest things. If you're just getting started, consider the fact that you might fall out of love with what you're doing. You might decide very quickly that this is not for you, and then you're stuck with a bunch of stuff. You might be trying to sell it or anything like that. And you got to be realistic about the fact that most creators don't make any money doing this. Some just do it for the love. It's a nice little hobby. Some people just never quite get to the monetization level. I'm still not at the monetization level, but you can't expect as a YouTuber or a streamer or a podcaster that the money is just going to come pouring in. You got to be mindful of that. Take care of yourself, because if you want to build this as a business, it can't become a business if you bankrupt it right away. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Let me know if you want to hear more advice kind of videos like this. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, all the wonderful things that help me get seen. As always, thanks to everybody who comes out and checks out the videos. But until next time, let's get to work.